I asked and a few people said that I should make YouTube videos about my Crohn's disease story and my ileostomy and everything, so I thought I'd give it a go. So Crohn's disease, if you don't know, I'll make another video going further into this, but it's an autoimmune disease which is lifelong and there's no cure for. And it's not life-threatening in itself, but the complications it can cause can be potentially life-threatening and dangerous. So that's kind of where it all begins for me, is a complication. So I didn't know that I had Crohn's disease until about a month ago. Basically, we have to go back to about maybe October last year. I had started not really eating properly, and I'd go like 4 days at a time without eating. I was really struggling. Every time I ate, I was throwing up, or I was in agony, like really bad stomach aches, feeling really sick, and it wasn't good. My mum basically sat me down. I think she thought that I had a bit of an eating disorder, talked me around into eating a bit more, and so I started. I'd already lost about 3 stone during that amount of time. That was, I'd say, about 3 months. Then for the next month I tried really hard to eat more, and I was still in a lot of pain, but I felt like I was putting weight on. In reality, I'd actually lost another stone. So that was 4 stone in 4 months that I'd lost. And then one day I was lying on the settee and I sneezed and I got this really sharp pain in my stomach, and it hurt so bad that it just took like all of the air out of me. Like I couldn't breathe, it hurt so bad. And my mum was like, oh, it might be a pulled muscle, like because you were lying weird and then you sneezed. And a few days went by and it was still really hurting, and I googled it, and Google also said it was probably a pulled or a strained muscle, and that it could take up to 6 weeks to heal. So I was like, oh right, okay, I'll just wait, like, and if it doesn't get any better in 6 weeks then I'll go to the doctors. 2 weeks went by and I was in absolute agony. Like I couldn't stand up straight, I was walking around hunched over, I could barely walk because I was in so much pain. I wasn't really eating because I was in so much pain, it was making me feel sick, and I was using a hot water bottle all day, every day, all night. Like I'd wake up from the pain in the middle of the night. I'd wake up from the pain like when my mum was getting up asking to make me a new hot water bottle because I couldn't even get out of bed, I was in that much pain. And 2 weeks of that, of being in like excruciating pain, and my mum was like, you have to go to the doctors, clearly this isn't a pulled muscle, it's getting worse, it's not getting any better. So I went down to the doctors and she had a bit of a feel around in my stomach, but she was barely even like touching me, and I was like crying, screaming because it hurt so bad. So she was like, you have to go to the hospital like now, and they'll probably want to keep you in to run a load of tests. So I'll ring them and let them know that you're going there now, and then it'll probably be best if your mum like comes back to Frodsham, packs you a bag and takes it back to the hospital for you, so that they can get the tests done as quickly as possible. So obviously I was really upset about that. I thought that she'd just sort of give me some medicine and like send me on my way, but obviously not. So I got to the doctors, had some blood tests, and had 2 different doctors assess me, and the blood results came back, and you're supposed to have like the maximum inflammation you're supposed to have in your blood if nothing's wrong is 10, and mine was 189. So they said like I had to stay in, and they guessed that it was probably an abscess like straight away, which it did turn out to be an abscess. So I got told I had to stay in the hospital, and I got sent up to ward 56, which it was really nice there. All the nurses were really sweet. It was a brand new ward, and I was in a room which only had like 2 other beds in it, 3 of us all together. There was one woman next to me that was already in there, but she was like half asleep because she just had an operation. And then after a while, another bed got wheeled in, and it was actually someone that I'd been to college with. Shout out to Sam if you're watching this, because she's a big help. I was really anxious and really upset about being there. Obviously with COVID, like we weren't allowed any visitors, and she really kept me company and like tried to keep me positive. And whenever I was upset, she would like comfort me, so thanks Sam. So I got a CT scan the next day, which that in itself was hell, because I couldn't eat or drink anything from 12 o'clock the night before, and I didn't get the scan until 4 p.m. so all day and all afternoon I had nothing to eat, nothing to drink, but I was taking painkillers, so they'd give me like a little sip of water to take my tablets with. So I was feeling like really thirsty, really hungry, just absolutely exhausted because I barely got any sleep and was throwing up all night because I was having panic attacks and feeling really anxious. The day after the CT scan, the consultant came round. He was really nice, and he basically said that I had an abscess on my bowel, fallopian tubes and womb, which I was like, oh my god, that must be pretty big. And he was like your insides are in a bit of a mess, like it looks like there's all like loops and it just doesn't look like how it should. He was like, what we'll do is we'll put you on antibiotics to get rid of the abscess, and then we'll like reevaluate the situation, see how you're looking. He said if this abscess doesn't go down, you'll have to have surgery to get rid of it, because obviously it could like rupture or something. He said luckily your body is like containing it, like it's sort of formed a little bubble around it, so if it does rupture it shouldn't like spread, like everything that's inside the abscess shouldn't spread, but we would have to still get it out just in case. So obviously again I was crying. I feel like for this week I did nothing but cry, because I was just terrified, like I was so scared, really just didn't know how I was going to cope with any of this, but I did. I actually ended up coping with a second hospital stay as well. But he was like, okay, we'll put you on antibiotics. So a couple of days after that, Sam gets discharged, and the nurses tell us that everyone on our ward is getting moved into different wards because they need to clean the one that we're in. So I was like, oh my god, my anxiety went through the roof then, because I knew that I wasn't going to be like staying in a room with Sam anymore, but to make it even worse, I was going to be in a new ward with different nurses. Like it was going to be full of strangers again. Like I was freaking out because I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be alone, basically. Alone but in a room full of people, if that makes any sense. So I was having another panic attack, and one of the nurses was like, oh, I've rang down there and they said it's the gynecology ward that you're being moved to, and all the nurses in there are really nice, which they were, and she's like, but like all the women that you're in a room with, they're all quite young, so you'll be alright. I was like, right, okay. Like got my head around it a little bit, got wheeled through the hospital on my bed, like back into into the different ward. So that was ward 40 that I got moved on to, and ward 40 was a bit older, it wasn't as nice, and there was, I think, 8 of us in a bay. I think there was 8 of us. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So I got there and it was not a bay full of young people. Everyone was old, apart from the girl next to me, who was really nice. Her name was Francesca, and she gave me a multi-pack of crisps because I could barely eat anything because I got put on a low residue diet and I'm a really picky eater. So she gave me a multi-pack of crisps, legend. And then there was one other young girl like down in the bottom corner, but everyone else was old, like really old basically, and the ward wasn't as nice. Like in ward 56 we'd had our own toilet, our own shower between the three of us, and in this one it was like the whole ward was like sharing toilets and showers, which wasn't the best, but you know, you're in hospital, you can't exactly expect it to be like a 5-star hotel. So I think like I was probably doing all right, like mentally, until I got moved to ward 40, because I had a panic attack the first night I got to 56, but after that first night I was fine because I knew all of the nurses, because it was like the same nurses every day. They were all really nice and they'd like come and have a chat with me, like chill out with me all the time. And I had Sam there who was talking to me basically the whole time, and the other like women that had been in and out, they'd been really nice as well, so it really wasn't a problem. Like we had a telly so we could watch telly, I was colouring in and like going on my phone and stuff. And then when I got moved to 40, it was just a nightmare, because I don't want to go too much into it because obviously it's like other people's health, but like at some point all of the old women that were in there got a bit confused, and especially one who was in like the diagonal. I was in the back corner and she was in the front corner, like diagonally across from me, and she just got really confused and thought like the next room was her kitchen, even though she knew she was in hospital. And she started like shouting things at me, and she thought that I was like out to get her. She thought I was gonna report her to the police for something, and she was like shouting at me. Like I'd walk past, and I had to walk past her to go to the toilet, and just a bit TMI, but obviously because I was having a flare up, it turned out that I was having a flare up from Crohn's disease. That's what caused my abscess. So I was back into the toilet quite a lot, and I had to walk past her every time to go in and out, and every time I walked past her she'd be like screaming things at me. So it got to the point where I was wearing headphones, even though my headphones had run out of battery. I was wearing my headphones so she'd think that I couldn't hear her, but like she was still shouting things at me even though I had headphones on. And I'd pull my curtain, like I had my curtain pulled round for like the last probably like last 4 days, and like just wouldn't speak to anyone because I was freaked out. So she was like literally 3 o'clock in the morning shouting about the World Cup being on the ceiling, and like just shouting out about free wine, and it was creeping me out. And then there was like another woman who like was like growling in her sleep, which was actually terrifying. Like I'd be lying there in the middle of the night and I'd just hear like "Rrr, rrr." So that was pretty scary. So it was, I felt like I was in an insane asylum, like, which sounds probably bad to say, but I just felt like I was gonna lose my mind being in there, and it wasn't good. Like even the girl that had been like further down, the young one, because Francesca got discharged, the one that was at the bottom, like she like was on the phone saying like she was going to go insane if she didn't get discharged soon. So it wasn't just me that felt that way. But I'd literally just had my curtain pulled around all day, colouring all day, watching Netflix all day to try and just pass the time so I didn't have to speak to anyone. So eventually, thank God, I got discharged. I'd been on antibiotics and my inflammation number, which was 189 when I came in, had been coming down steadily like every day, which was good. Like it come down quite a lot. I think it was on like 40 the day that they discharged me. So I came home, I was on antibiotics for another week. Then a couple of weeks later I went for an MRI, which was an experience and a half, because if you've got IBD, you know, like if you have to go for an MRI or any kind of scan or like a colonoscopy or something, you have to drink prep like it's like a prep drink, and I had to drink clean prep. Luckily I only had to drink a litre of it because some people have to drink 2 litres. But for those of you that have never tasted it, the only way I can describe it is like really, really salty chemicals, but they mix it with like bitter lemon cordial because they think it's going to mask the taste. It doesn't at all. And I felt like I was going to throw up every time I had a mouthful of it. And then I actually did end up throwing it up. So I had to drink a litre. I drank about half a litre, had to run and throw it all up. And then I told them that I'd been sick, and they were like, if you don't drink like some more of it, then you're not going to be able to have your scan. And I was like, are you taking the piss? Really? So I drank 2 more cups of it, which was a struggle, and went for my MRI, which all went alright, came home, and then a week later the consultant that had been looking after me in the hospital called up, and he was asking me how I was doing. I was like, oh, I feel great, I feel so much better, because I could finally like walk standing up and I wasn't in pain anymore, and I could actually feel that the abscess was gone, because there was a big lump in my stomach before. It was gone. And he was like, yeah, you can't see the abscess on the scan anymore. And I was like, oh, that's good. I was like, I can come off the low residue diet next week as well, so I'm excited for that, because it's basically like low fibre, like you can't eat really like anything. Like I was basically just eating chicken, potatoes and rice and white bread like every single day for every single meal. And he was like, oh, about that, and I was like, oh god, what? And he's like, so we had a meeting, a few of the consultants, and we had a look at your scan because it looked quite complex, and basically like we think you should have surgery, like we'd strongly recommend that you have surgery. He was like, this isn't the news that I wanted to give you, because you were doing so well on the antibiotics, and you know, you were keeping in a really positive mindset, and I was convinced that you were going to get better, but if we put you on medicine now, it wouldn't do anything to the areas that are diseased because they're so bad. He was like, it looks like you've got severe Crohn's disease, like it's really badly affected your intestines. And he said, if you have this surgery, you could live until you're 80. And I was just like, what do you mean I could live until I'm 80? I started like freaking out, like, oh my god, like I have to do this or I'm gonna die. So yeah, he told me that I would have to have surgery. So I think I'm gonna leave this video now, and I'll make another one next week talking about the lead up to my surgery, having my surgery, and what it was like being in hospital afterwards. Drop a like and a comment, subscribe if you want to keep getting notifications for my videos, and press the bell, and I'll see you next week.